A while back, we took a look at the greatest sons of legendary NBA players. We looked at where they were in their careers as young athletes, and if they were headed to the NBA or not. Well, a lot's changed since then, and we have a much more clear path of which players are going where, or if any actually made it to the league. So we're going to look at some from that original video and some others. But first, before we do, today I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks, which is a new and innovative way to play fantasy sports for every sport you can think of. NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, MLB, soccer, MMA, and many more. And it's great because it's the best legal way to play props in states like California, New York, Texas, Florida, and more. If you're unfamiliar, here's how it works, and it's so simple. Say for basketball, you have different categories to choose from: points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers, and free throws made. And you're trying to pick the over-unders on 2 to 5 players with a chance to 10x your money. So for example, the Knicks are playing Philly tonight, and Julius Randle's been on a hot streak, so I'd probably pick the over on his 21.5 points. Go over to rebounds, and for the size that Philly has, I probably wouldn't pick RJ Barrett to get over 5 rebounds, so I'd pick the under on him. And now we made at least 2 picks so we can pick our options, but we're gonna pick one more player. So for 3-pointers made, I'd probably expect Steph Curry to have over 5 threes against Atlanta, so he's an easy choice for me. So I'd pick the over on Julius Randle's 21.5 points, the under on RJ Barrett's rebounds, and the over on Steph Curry's threes. With power play, you gotta hit all 3 of these, but you have a chance to 5x your money and make $100. With flex pay, you only have to hit 2 out of the 3 for slightly lower winnings. And just like that, it's that easy. In under a minute, you've already picked your fantasy team. It's my new favorite form of fantasy, so give it a try using my promo code SWEAT for 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Thanks to them once again for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to it. First, I want to look at Bronny James, the son of LeBron, who's had all the hype, but it's becoming more and more clear that he's nothing like his father. But he still has all that hype, still having offers on the table from Kentucky, UCLA, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina, while he's still only the 13th ranked point guard of the 2023 class and the 49th ranked player overall, while number 1 overall ranked prospect DJ Wagner, son of former NBA player DeJuan Wagner, still has no offers. And that's the luxury of being LeBron's son, because as a freshman he averaged 4.1 points a game. As a sophomore, he sat out the whole season with a torn meniscus, and now he's going into his junior season having grown to 6'3". I guess being a prospect is based on how good you're expected to be and not how good you are right now, because up until now the man's only averaged 4 points a game in his high school career. So I guess these rankings are just what you get for being LeBron's son. Now one day he could still be a successful NBA player, but there's no chance he's going to be the next LeBron James, because as a junior in high school, LeBron was already dominating, averaging 28, 9, and 6, and looking like an NFL prospect on the football field. Don't get me wrong though, I'm pulling for Bronny, and I'm hoping that when this season starts up soon, over the past 2 years he's gone to that next level and taken that next step. Now Ryan Mutombo, obviously son of Dikembe, his season's about to begin in Georgetown. He committed a while back and has only looked more impressive since high school. As a senior, he was 6'11", 240 pounds. Well, now ESPN has him listed as a 7'2", 252-pound center, with similar instincts in shot blocking and rebounding to his father. He's still got a lot of work to do with his game, so don't expect him to be a one-and-done player at Georgetown, especially as a traditional big man, but definitely do look forward to seeing how much noise he's going to make playing at the next level one day, because right now Ryan definitely has the potential to be a future NBA player if all goes as planned. As for Dwayne Wade's son Zaire, it's still kinda up in the air. As we know, he graduated from high school only a 3-star recruit with no offers from any major schools, so he went on to do a postgraduate year instead of attending college. And from there, well, he was drafted 10th overall in the G League draft by the Salt Lake City Stars last month, and it was a controversial move since Dwayne Wade's a minority owner in the Utah Jazz, and to a lot of people it seems like he's got the same treatment Bronny's getting. It's just not a good look that his dad works in the organization and has the ear of the people who makes drafting decisions. I mean, Zaire didn't even go to college. He was a 3-star recruit plus 1 extra year of high school, and that was enough to make the G League. That's what some say. Others believe Zaire earned it. In his postgraduate year, he did honestly start to gain attention of a lot more colleges, and it was clear that his game had developed, and it'll probably only get better considering the fact that he's been putting in 3 to 4 workouts every day for a while now, waking up at 6 a.m. with his trainer, running drills, lifting weights, and playing alongside NBA players. And that'll put anyone on the right track, but we'll see the truth on if he actually deserves that spot when the G League season really gets going, so keep an eye on that. On the other hand, someone who was already given their chance, someone we've seen come and go by now, is David Stockton, son of NBA legend John Stockton. But David was never really a great basketball player, at least by pro standards. He averaged 7 points a game as a senior for Gonzaga, then went undrafted in the NBA, and has pretty much been playing in the G League for the last 7 years. I honestly didn't know he was still going. I expected him to have moved on from basketball into something else by now, but he's still bouncing around to different teams. His hopes in the actual league are gone by now because he's 30 and has only ever played in 6 games on an NBA team, but don't forget, he's still better than any other basketball player you've probably ever met in person. And speaking of Lebrons Sons, that brings us to Michael Jordan's and Marcus and Jeffrey Jordan, who clearly never were the player that their father was. Now, both sons were born 2 years apart, meaning they played on the same high school and college team at UCF at one point. And Marcus was actually a pretty good player. Himself and his brother led their high school to the best record in its history. Then he went on to average 16 points a game at UCF in 3 seasons before he walked away from basketball because he lost his passion for it. So he couldn't have been any further away from being MJ 2.0. But where is he now? Well, in 2016, he opened a sneaker and apparel store, the Trophy Room, but it didn't go so well, so they switched to online only back in 2019. As for Jeffrey Jordan, well, he's the older brother, but was the worst basketball player. He transferred to UCF in 2010, but left for personal reasons just like his brother in 2012. And since then, well, now he got married in 2019 and works for the Jordan brand in digital innovation. So they're both still involved in some way with Jordan brand as their careers. And I mean, that's fair. I guess it's fitting since it's kind of named after them too. But speaking of MJ, let's look at Scotty Pippen's son, Scotty Pippen Jr. And he's turning into quite the young prospect who's going into his 3rd year at Vanderbilt. Year 1 wasn't the best. He was a 6-foot guard who averaged 12 points a game. Last year he put up 20 a game, and now he's grown to 6'3" going into his 3rd season, so we can expect big things. And at this rate, with how much he's progressed, I'd say he's definitely headed for the league in a couple of years. He's a much different player than Scotty Sr. though. But they actually started out pretty similar because coming out of high school, Pippen Sr. was a 6-foot guard just like his son. And while his son hasn't and probably won't have the same freakish 8-inch growth spurt while he's in college, he's making the most of what he's got. He won't be a small forward like his dad, so a lot's going to be different for him, but things are looking bright right now. Now, while the only things you may have seen or heard about Ray Allen's sons were those videos of him trying to teach them lessons on the court, his oldest son, Ray Allen III, may start to make some noise before too long. Right now, he's not the best player. He's not even a great player. He was a sophomore in high school last season, averaged 8 points and 1 assist a game, and only ranks 479th just in Florida. But listen, he's 6'2" right now, has a nearly identical shooting form as his father, and is now being coached by him. Hasn't had a great start, but there's a chance for him to turn things around. So don't be surprised if his name starts coming up in the next few years. I guess also don't be surprised if his name doesn't start coming up. But speaking of sharpshooting NBA players, Mike Miller has 2 sons both in the sport, Mason and Maverick. Mason's a 6'9" power forward who can shoot the lights out and is pretty athletic for his play style. He's tall and skinny though at only 180 pounds, so he's gonna need to add on a lot of muscle and size if he ever wants to be NBA ready. But for now, it's working. He was a 4-star recruit in high school and got a lot of impressive college offers and chose to go to Creighton, where he's waiting for a season to start. As for Maverick, well, this year he'll also be getting coached by his father, and he'll need it because now going into his junior season, he's still unranked. He now has a former NBA player and college basketball player to learn and develop from. But if he stays in the current trend that he's in now, he probably won't make it to the heights his other family members have. As for Ron Artest Jr., son of, honestly, I didn't think we were ever going to hear from him because in my original video, linked in the description, I mentioned how he wasn't all that great of a player. He excelled on defense, which he picked up from his dad, but he didn't pick up anything from the offensive side of things. Meta World Peace averaged 25 a game in his best season. Well, last year for CSU, Artest Jr. averaged 4 points and 3 rebounds a game on 31% from the field without shooting a single 3-pointer. But he now just recently signed for the Miami Heat's G League team, but then got cut 1 week later, which isn't surprising based on his skill set. I don't know what's next for him now, but based on that, it seems likely his dad had something to do with him getting that spot, which circles back to Zaire and Dwayne Wade. But we'll see. Now, last time I spoke about Jordan Lowry, aka Allen Iverson's son, there were really only videos of him in 4th and 5th grade, but they were impressive and had a lot of people talking because he was a 9 or 10-year-old, crossing over little kids, hitting threes, and driving to the hoop like a pro, looking head and shoulders above all of his competition, just as you'd imagine Iverson's son would. Well, now apparently Lowry's in the 8th grade, and it was impressive to look him up and see titles like Jordan Lowry, #1 point guard in Texas class of 2025, or #1 8th grader in the country, Jordan Lowry, top PG in Texas. But then I realized he uploaded them. At least he's not lacking confidence. His game is coming along nicely though, and he's continued to stay ahead of all of his competition. How tall he grows is going to play a big factor in his future success, but he's clearly already got a good work ethic, so if the height comes in, he should be set, because for years he's already been training with professional trainers and former NBA players. But no matter how good of NBA players they were, some guys just don't have their dad's touch for basketball. Penny Hardaway's been coaching his son Jaden Hardaway at Memphis the past 2 years, and you'd think there would be more hype around a 6'5" guard who's the son of a former NBA great, but he's not so talked about, and most people aren't even aware that Penny has a son. Seems like some players just aren't cut out to play professionally, because last season Jaden averaged 2.6 points a game on 35% from the field and 17% from 3, which were numbers barely up from his freshman year at Memphis. And it just goes to show 2 things: just how hard it is to really make the NBA, and the problem that goes on with second generation players. And it's a similar story for white chocolate Jason Williams' son, Jackson Williams, which oddly enough hit his basketball prime at 13. His mixtape from that year today has 4.8 million views. He was a little kid looking just like his dad on the court, crossing players over, hitting flashy passes, and scoring just like Jason used to. But today the hype's been lost so much, I couldn't even figure out what grade he was in. And he's not ranked anywhere because he grew up and is now just an average sized person who's not super athletic like Jason used to be. So now he's just a dude with above average dribbling and passing abilities, which really isn't that great for high school basketball. So we probably won't ever hear much more from him. Now last time we also talked about DJ Rodman, son of Dennis. In my original video, and at the time, he was doing great, putting up 24 and 9 and playing better than his father ever did in high school, and had been doing so good he committed to Washington State on a scholarship, something his father also never did. But eventually the collegiate level was where Dennis made a name for himself and was able to get drafted 27th overall. Well, DJ's not on the same path anymore, at least for now, because these were his averages his freshman year at Washington State, and here's his numbers for last year. He's slowly getting into more of a starting role, but certainly isn't getting too much closer to a career in the league. And finally, that brings us to Sharif O'Neal, Shaq's son. Now in high school, Sharif had a lot of hype, even though he was only a 4-star recruit. The fact that he was 6'10" and the son of one of the greatest big men of all time made his future look as bright as can be. But since then, things have changed. It didn't help that in his first year at UCLA, he had a heart surgery and had to sit out that entire season, let alone he didn't know if he'd actually ever play again. But he came back for his sophomore year where he barely made it off the bench and only averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds a game. So upset with his playtime and coaching, Shaq helped him transfer to his old school, LSU, where he hoped they'd take better care of his son. But the same thing happened. He barely made it off the bench and barely improved any of his numbers, on top of only shooting 37% from the field and 18% from 3. So again, we're seeing a very low rate of NBA legend sons actually make it big time in the league. And we've seen a lot more second generation players succeed whose fathers made it to the league but weren't all that great. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that when their backs are against the wall, at the end of the day, they know that they're still gonna have money in a career, who unlike their fathers, when they were coming up and trying to make a name for themselves, it was all or nothing. I think that's what it boils down to. What do you think? Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.